Up and Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up and Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Happy Tuesday. True Crime Tuesday. Thanks for being Up and Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. You ever talk to someone who actually died and came back? Not a metaphor. I'm talking clinical death, and somehow, some way, they're here to tell the story. And not just the story of what happened, but how it changed them. That's what my guest today does every single week. Dan Bush, the creator and host of Alive Again. And this show is wild. I mean, it's raw, unfiltered, and full of people who saw the other side somehow and now see life totally differently. Some talk about meeting loved ones who've passed. Others describe things they couldn't possibly know. And you know what? There are patterns. These stories are different, but they're not random. So later, Dan's going to join us. We're going to talk about it all. What happens after? Say 10 years later, 25 years down the line. How do you keep living after you've already died? What is that like? Don't miss this. Dan Bush coming up. Before that, what do David Bowie, Samuel L. Jackson, and Charlie XCX all have in common? Researchers say there are 6 specific traits that make someone, quote, cool. Those 6: extroverted, hedonistic, powerful, adventurous, open, and autonomous. Nearly 6,000 people across 12 countries were surveyed. And what's wild is no matter where they're from, the definition of cool stays pretty consistent. The study's lead researcher said he was stunned by the similarity, showing just how much Western pop culture has shaped global ideas of cool. They also looked at the difference between being cool and just being good. Turns out good people are seen as warm, agreeable, secure, traditional, kind, but not necessarily, cool. And while we might admire someone's kindness, it's usually the rebels and risk takers who get tagged as cool. But here's the twist. Being cool, especially that edgy, risk-taking teen movie kind of cool, might not age well. Studies show that kids who leaned into that kind of behavior often ended up struggling in their 20s with stuff like relationships and addiction. Some of the cool kids may have gotten the spotlight. It's the well-liked ones, even just the ones with one solid friend who came out ahead in the long term. Being good might actually be the cooler move. Again, those 6 traits that define coolness: extroverted, kind of loud in a good way, right? Hedonistic, chasing pleasure and living in the moment. Powerful, commanding attention without trying. Adventurous, always down for the unknown. Open, curious, accepting, never boxed in. And finally, autonomous, doing your own thing, no matter who's watching. Those 6 make you cool. I'll be really honest. You want to know what makes you cool? It's going to Pink Drink. Going to pinkdrink.org, getting tickets, joining us Saturday, July 12th at the Elks Lodge in San Luis Obispo for over 30 of the hottest producers in wine, beer, cider, spirits, craft cocktails, all poolside, all dressed in pink, curated by It's a live DJ, vibes you cannot fake. This is not your average tasting. No, this is summer serve sexy. We've been saying it. And it's all for a great cause. The Woods Humane Society, also the Elks National Foundation. It's for the 21 and over. $65 gets you in. VIP tickets just $85. You will not leave thirsty or hungry. That's for dang sure. I said damn and dang together. What, like dang? Anyways, get to pinkdrink.org. Get that VIP ticket. Get in an hour early, and you're going to get a wine pull ticket. So you're going to walk out of there. But just do the math. It's a $20 difference, $65 to $85 to VIP. And you're going to walk out with a bottle of wine worth at least 30, 40, 50, maybe $100 with the wine pull, because you're getting a free wine pull and you get it in an hour. I don't understand how VIP is not just a no-brainer. Check it out, pinkdrink.org.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, this one I've been looking forward to. My guest today is a storyteller who doesn't just flirt with life and death. He dives right into the space in between. He's an award-winning filmmaker, but now he's behind the mic hosting Alive Again, a podcast that tells extraordinary stories of people who've died or nearly died and came back changed. And these aren't just survival tales. These are transformations, people who met something or someone on the other side, people who now see life through an entirely different lens. Talking out-of-body experiences, spiritual shifts, science, skepticism, and the stuff that doesn't just fit into a neat little box. I love this conversation because it's not about proving anything, it's about listening. So let's do that. Dan Bush, welcome. Thank you for being Up and Adam.
Adam, hey, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so across the myriad stories you've encountered on Alive Again, there's this like tapestry of experiences, some filled with light, some filled with darkness, yet certain threads seem to weave through them all. What occurring themes or even sensations have you observed in these near-death narratives that suggest a shared human experience, regardless of individual background?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what drew me to this is, there are these shared experiences or these commonalities across these experiences that are cross-cultural, across, race, sex, religion. And there are a lot of commonalities there. Often there really are people who experience the out-of-body experience, and they can see things in the room that even though their brain was considered to be clinically dead, they have a recollection of them. Often people have this wonderful, profound sense of belonging, and almost like there's a presence, an entity of extreme love that sort of enraptures them. And they have, one common thing is a lot of people who are brought back, the first thing they ask is, why did you bring me back? Because they are in this, very much different consciousness space. But yeah, it's a podcast about near-death experiences or NDEs, but it's also about brushes with death and these other sort of transformations that follow. We talked to a Holocaust survivor. We've talked to someone who's kidnapped by a drug cartel and tortured and survived. We've talked to survivors of the Lahaina fires and the Hawaii wildfires and so on and so on. We've collected, about 50 stories. And the biggest takeaway for me is seeing how these folks, they all say the same thing, whether it was a near-death experience or whether they just had this extreme adversity that they survived. They all say that they wouldn't change it. They would not undo it. They would not change anything about what happened because who they are now and how they've transformed and everything they've become is so big and different and has given them such a sense of meaning and purpose that they wouldn't change a thing. Isn't that fascinating?
It is. And I'm curious if you find people leaning towards their beliefs. Do Christians see Christ? Do hippies think that, the whole room was saged and I smelled Palo Santo? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do they play into that a little bit?
It's interesting. The folks that we've talked to, I've interviewed a lot of folks who have sort of had more of a mechanistic view of the world, and they believe without question that consciousness is something created by the brain and it's not something that exists in a field outside the brain. And then they've had a change of heart after having this experience.
Wow.
And they can't explain it to us.
Wow.
So if anything, I've seen a lot of people going the other direction.
Conversions. Wow. That gives me chills.
And it's not that they find, Christianity necessarily or any specific religion, but that they understand. They seem to come away with an unshakable understanding of the nature of reality that the rest of us sort of don't have.
Cultures shape our lives profoundly, influencing beliefs, fears, even our own perception of the things around us. How do near-death experiences differ across cultures, genders, age groups even? Are there notable distinctions in how these experiences are perceived, recounted by a 10-year-old? By a woman in Nepal versus a dude in Jersey. I don't know.
Right. Well, we're learning as we go. The whole point of this show was not to chase some specific result or to prove out anything. So, we're not so much interested in, we're not hyper focused on any specific scientific bent or any religious pathway. But yeah, these experiences, especially the near-death experiences that we've recorded, they have these commonalities. They have life review often, a meeting with, ancestors or relatives who have already passed on to the other side. Some of them are quite inexplicable. Some of them seem like, oh, right, of course, that makes sense that they would hallucinate that, right? And DMT is released in the brain at the moment of death, and that's a very strong psychedelic compound that's naturally produced in the body. But it's released in a lot more at the moment of our death, we found. And is that responsible for what we're experiencing or what we see? But, I will say that, I have started to open up my ideas about this and started to accept that maybe I don't. There's like a Western box where everything, and there's gatekeepers for the science and the stuff that is considered, the ultimate truth that goes into that Western box of knowledge. But it's tiny. And there's so much more outside of that box that is not allowed into it, or we just don't understand yet. I think that my inspiration for this was just to go straight to the source and just listen to these folks.
I love that. I love these conversations. So surviving a brush with death, obviously transformative, but the journey doesn't necessarily end upon survival, or maybe even in some cases, revival. From your conversations, how do individuals describe the long-term effects of a near-death experience, say a decade later, or do the initial revelations persist? Do they evolve, or do they fade over time?
Well, everybody's different, right? But we do. I'm a filmmaker, but I am also, a serious student of anthropology, and there is this idea of liminality, this liminal state, and all that means is, and a lot of cultures bear this out with rites of passage at different points, but it's the death of an old version of yourself. And then this liminal state where you're sort of in between identities. And then there's a threshold you cross as you enter into the new version of yourself. And this crossover of identities has a couple of thresholds, but that liminal state can last 5 minutes. It can last 80 years, where people are sort of understanding and coming to new terms about who they are. Maybe they've lost their sight, or maybe they're now, quadriplegics, and they have to find a new way to survive and to exist. And the thing that we like to ask folks is not, it's one thing to say, okay, what have you lost? But then when you ask them this question, what have you gained? They come with these most miraculous things. And they say, they really speak to like the nature of human resilience and the nature of the human spirit to adapt and to come back and even stronger, even if they don't have the same the same identity that they had before.
Final question. In a world where empirical evidence, often reigns supreme, tales of the afterlife often tread this fine line of belief, skepticism. How do your guests reconcile their profound, often unexplainable experiences with a society that often demands tangible proof? Have any shared struggles of maybe being believed or even understood?
Oh, 100%. And in fact, our first guest, Peter Panagore, who died while ice climbing in Colorado, he struggled with this a lot. And his denomination and his religious background, they were very unaccepting of the idea of a near-death experience that doesn't sort of fit into the doctrine for a lot of religions. So there is a struggle as you come back with who's accepting you. But I will say this, there are more connections the human brain is one of the most complex objects in the universe, and there are more connections in the human brain, in your brain, than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh, wow.
So there's so much we don't understand. And on a quantum level, there's so much going on that suggests that it's not just billiard balls on a pool table in our brains, that there's so much more going on. And we're just now beginning to tap that. So,
Dan, wow. The only problem with this interview is that it's like not nearly long enough, my man. What a fun conversation. I hope you had half as much fun as I did. It's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and for being Up and Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. You're awesome.
Some say life's where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Dan, man, I could have gone a whole other hour with that dude. Easy. Alive Again is available wherever you get your podcasts. Highly recommend you start with the episode that speaks to you and just go from there. Links in the show notes. Dan, thanks again for being here. Wow. All right, let's take a second. Show some love to Life Elements. As this weather is changing, I've already started getting bites by things. Life Elements has a clean, safe, plant-based bug spray that actually works. It repels mosquitoes, ticks. Best part, safe for your kids, your pets, even your skin. No harsh chemicals, no weird stickiness. Check it out. This is next level. Local skincare and wellness, handcrafted in Atascadero by the kind of people who might actually literally whip you up something right there as you walk in. I mean, that's Martha has done it a trillion times. In addition to their spot in Atascadero, you could shop their products at The Hive in AG. Also, the general store, downtown Paso, lifeelements.com. I highly recommend going in there, though. 7425 El Camino Real, back right corner, lifeelements.com, and let them know you heard them on Up and Adam. All right, this week, going quick. Feels like this week's moving. Thanks to Moonshiner Collective for original music on the show called Start Again. Tamber Winery for the Lobro Studios at Tamber. Taste their wine in the village of Arroyo Grande. Timbre. How you spell it? tamberwinery.com. Thanks to you for rating, reviewing, subscribing to what we're doing here. Sharing it with a friend means an absolute ton. You have to know that. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I hope your week's going fantastically. Till tomorrow, I'm Adam Montiel. Thank you so much for being Up and Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start